But I did get stairs. Get a blender for Rose. Yeah.
I don't know why.
You got two tech guys working for you over
There you go. We'll be okay.
there. We got Maureen. in case they go over there. She can do entertainment.
The day.
Make sure things are going okay out there.
Yeah, I read the notes. So many internet issues.
Yeah, and it doesn't use it on anymore. We were just I'm not asking you. I don't know how. Wow.
You no longer have to live your internet. Oh, why did we do that? That's why. That's why. I got absolutely more than I do about. Did you pull your latest one?
Yeah. Well, no, I kind of run around.
What are you gonna do? So it's on the desktop.
It was, I guess.
Well, did you save it to the desktop?
We got
If we go to PowerPoint, nothing recent.
I did, but that's all I've done. Yeah, well, no. So how did you pull up? We're not. All right. So now we need to pull up. Let her load it up. Show up. Oh, yeah. Everybody would need to see it.
Hey, Matt?
Yeah.
All right. The jack was over there. There's one here, but I don't know. They're not all down that down. They all come set that.
About 7 years old. For those that are needing it here for your CEUs, we did get ADAC approval. We are now an approved education provider. So we're just excited to have you here. And Christy, I'll let Matt introduce Christy, but as soon as we're up and going, we got to wait till we get a thumbs up from Clint, our guru. So just can't thank you enough for taking time on your day and eat a lot of food. We'll have pie for you on the way out. You can probably take a whole pie. Great.
So I just want to reiterate what Eric just just said, I'm going to step in here for the folks online who are viewing. Matt Walsh here with Keystone Treatment Center and the Jason Foundation to Prevent Teen Suicide. Just want to welcome you all. Want to introduce Christy. She's done a great job of putting together some materials today for you that may be very useful. We know that the drug game has changed for young people these days. The things that they're doing are very different from when I was a kid, very different from when most of us were young. And it's good to keep up. And Christy is the director of our adolescent program at Keystone Treatment Center. She is very up on what the kids are using these days. This is very good information. She's going to share some good stuff with us. And welcome, Christy. And welcome to our folks online. Thank you. We've got a bunch of people here in-house as well. Thank you for attending.
Thanks for letting me speak today too. So I've been at Keystone about 21 years, so I try to stay teachable because the kids, they are my best educators, along with several organizations like NADAC and SAMHSA and NIDA, which a lot of these information you're going to get today comes from. The first slide is going to give us an overview of kind of what the Monitoring the Future survey is and what the results were for the year before. The difference between this year and last year are not that great. They're minor, but they are some trends that we'll still talk about. So I'll let Matt start the video for you guys. We're going to break these down a little bit more and look at kind of how things have changed between 2014 and this last year. Basically, we're going to look at some good news. There's a lot of good news with the latest data that's coming in, but there's still some bad news. And we're going to look at some kind of novel trends that we're seeing and maybe you guys are seeing too. The good news is that overall, we're on a downward decline on use. When you look at alcohol, cigarettes, and illicit drugs, we're on the downhill slope. So that's a good thing. That's the good news. It's still pretty high if you look at alcohol. We're still dealing with 35% of 12th graders using. Cigarettes dropped to an all-time low. And then our illicit drugs, street drugs, they're still there and they're still a strong player. But we'll break this down even further. Let's look at alcohol. And I think when we look at trends, this is one we kind of tend to just not think about a lot, but alcohol is still the #1 drug used by teens, although marijuana is kind of picking up speed there. But across the survey, there were declines noted, and in a 5-year window by seniors, binge dropping has really dropped significantly. Used to be as high as 90-some-odd% of seniors in the early 60s, late 60s. that were drinking, binge drinking anyway. Perceived risks of the binge drinking have increased, so some of our prevention efforts have definitely worked. Annual use prevalence for 8th, 10th, and 12th combined is about 40%. So still a lot of use, and it's still the highest use substance. This is an interesting one, the binge drinking statistics. Okay, and the binge is 5 or more drinks, and those are the grades respectively. So 8th graders, they're still binge drinking. 5% of them are binge drinking 5 or more drinks at a time. We had some more, 10 or more drinks at a time, or 15 or more drinks at a time, which is a lot for kids. You're looking at still 3.5% combined are drinking 15 drinks at a time. So it's pretty serious stuff. The availability has decreased. Teens are saying alcohol is a lot harder to get because they have to get a buyer. So some of the other things are a lot easier to get their hands on. It's still the most abused substance by teens. This may change in the next few years because, like I said, marijuana is kind of picking up some speed. And it's still one of the 3 leading causes of death. Automobile crashes, homicides, and suicide, and alcohol is a leading factor in all 3 of those. So we don't want to brush this under the rug that alcohol has somehow gotten better, and we have to kind of take the decrease in light of the fact that it's still causing a lot of trouble for the kids. So there's just some other ones. 1 in 4 teens are saying they've been in a car with somebody who's drinking, and 1 in 4 teens that involved in car accidents involve alcohol, and that 1/4 of those fatalities involve alcohol. So let's look at the street drugs overall. Like I said, general decline. Still not out of the woods yet. Synthetic use has declined. At your K2 bath salts, we saw a big spike of it. And it seems like, you know, we're getting some information out there about it. Believe it or not, I think social media has helped this. You've seen some of the videos of the zombie man in Florida. It kind of freaked out the kids a little bit. They're starting to see the synthetics as being more dangerous to use, but it's still an area of concern as chemists keep trying to change the makeup of the drugs. Anecdotally, from our center, we're seeing meth kind of come up in the wings again with our kids at the inpatient level. We're also seeing an increase in IV heroin use locally, especially with the kids, and that's kind of unheard of several years ago that the kids are using IV heroin. In adults, they're saying that nationally adults have seen an increase in the IV heroin, but nationally adolescents has dropped. MDMA, ecstasy, Molly, seen a slight decrease, but nothing huge, and overall a decrease in the IV drug use. All right, tobacco. This is really making some movements that are kind of alarming. On the survey itself, cigarettes has dropped to the lowest it has ever been since the inception of the survey, the Monitoring the Future survey. And at its peak, 1/4 of seniors were daily smokers in '97, which is, I mean, it's significant. Annually right now, combined grades were about 7% that are still smoking cigarettes. It's low, but there's another piece of that we need to look at. Availability, once again, teens are saying it's harder to get cigarettes. Thinking as a teen, what's your first mind go to? You know, and we'll get to that one in a minute. The perception of risk using nicotine is starting to increase, but we want to be cautiously optimistic because other tobacco use, like the use of hookahs, are at an all-time high. 23% increase in the use of hookahs. Now, I'm not aware of a hookah bar here in Sioux Falls, but I do know Rapid City is, and we're starting to see kind of an increase overall in the use of hookahs. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. E-cigarettes, very problematic, okay? They don't see it as being dangerous. If you think about the counter kind of culture with the e-cigs and the vaping, it's kind of being put out there as an alternative to smoking cigarettes and a safer alternative at that. But we'll talk a little bit more. Most kids right now are going straight to the e-cigs versus using tobacco products. So let's look at hookahs. Everybody's favorite, right? You want to play the little video clip for me there? is available on YouTube. It's kind of a fun thing to show the kids. I will show you some of the other side of the fence too when it comes to YouTube here shortly. So there is that perception once again that the hookahs are safer. It's novel. Anybody else know what it looks like? What else it might be used? It looks a little bit like a bong. Are we ready here? Clicking. I'm not clicking.
Try again.
All right, there we go. And we went through the whole little video, so I'll save you all the thing there. All right, medicine abuse is always a big question. Are they still abusing? We had that kind of big surge a couple of years ago in prescription meds. They are still using them, but there's declines, especially in the opiates. But like I said, anecdotally, in our doors, we're seeing them use more heroin, a lot less of the oxy, because the cost of heroin is a lot cheaper than the oxys or the Vicodins. The overdoses have also created a big stir too. There's a lot of movement towards Narcan. If you don't know what that is, please look it up, and trying to get some Narcan available to help save lives in the cases of opiate overdoses. So pretty steady rates with things like your Adderalls and your Ritalins. There is still a decrease in the perception of risk. That's a pretty strong thing, because we went and remember way back in the days when we said meth is bad, and here's your, we showed this 7 years of pictures, and those worked, but I think it caused them to look at FDA approved type of drugs to use instead, thinking they're safer, and that's still, that perception of risk is still low. Like I said, we're seeing more of the meth hitting our treatment facilities anyway. DXM, that was the cough syrup, chloroquine stuff, that one has dropped a bit too. 1 in 30 kids admit lifetime use. And that kind of overall all your prescription drugs. This is the 2015 graphic versus the one in the show, which was the 2014. So you're seeing some big players still on the top. Not a whole lot of change on that. Marijuana dropped maybe 1.5 points. So, but it's still a big thing. Inhalants, what's interesting is it's dropped probably to the lowest in South Dakota. The use of inhalants is the highest in all of the 50 states. So this was 2014, just as a little bit of a comparison. You can see prescription drugs are still a big player if we go back. Here's the ones that are a little bit alarming. And this is marijuana. Marijuana has taken kind of a big stronghold on our kids right now. And if you look at the percent of students reporting in the last year by grade, it's pretty steady, kind of this way. But if we look there, this is daily use, also pretty steady. You're going to see an uptick in your 12th graders, which is going to start kind of cause some alarm. The perception of risk, look at the dramatic drop, especially in that 12th grade group. Huge drop of the perception of risk. This was last year's statistics. Right now, looking at 2/3 of high schools don't view regular marijuana use as harmful. You can think of lots of reasons why that is. With all the legislation, with all the things that, debating politics, Charlotte's Web, a lot of the emotional discussion that goes with the use of any type of cannabis, it's hard to clear out. The stuff that we know about pot is still true. It still causes all the same problems that we knew years ago, but it's kind of been shadowed over by the discussion of the medical marijuana and the benefits. Marijuana use exceeds cigarette use. It's just an interesting tidbit, and 1 out of 16 seniors are daily users of marijuana. The medical marijuana has created some ripples effect. I gave this presentation not too long ago in Colorado, and it was really fascinating. Overall, Colorado is not on board with medical and recreational marijuana. There's very few doctors that are actually prescribing this stuff, and the few doctors that have been in some trouble for, parking outside of a musical festival and writing thousands of medical marijuana scripts. Overall, I thought I was going to have chairs thrown at me when I talked about it, but they're all on the same page as we are in Colorado, and they're seeing a lot of issues coming across because of recreational and medical marijuana. Overall, children entering treatment are routinely saying they're using because it's medicine. Pot is medicine. It's good for you. God created it. And that's why they're choosing a lot of times to go right to the marijuana. In kids in treatment, inpatient treatment, said 74% of them had used someone else's medical marijuana an average of 50 times before they got caught. So the medicine or the medical marijuana cards are getting diverted. So it is exposing the kids to an earlier first use. And we know the earlier they use, the earlier they're going to probably develop some substance use disorders in that severe category. We also know there's a lot of link between conduct disorders and other issues when they're exposed to them early on too. I'm a pet lover, so I have to bring in this fact. This little factoid is kind of an interesting one. In Colorado, because of they correlated the increased amount of medical marijuana permits to increased toxicosis with dogs, especially when the dogs are eating edibles. Obviously, there's a lot of different options available for marijuana down there in Colorado, and when they do eat them, it tends to be more fatal. And what dog won't try to eat a cookie or a brownie or something like that? So one of those little side effects we don't think about as much. There's a lot of other ones out there with environmental impacts and whatnot, but these are just a few. What do you see when you think about that picture? How many of you guys, your kids are sporting these colors? You know, they got the beanies that have the colors, or, you know, they're all about Bob Marley and they into reggae, right? But, you know, when I ask them, what does that mean to you? It just means I love pot. But there's so much more to that. So I wanted to give a few minutes to us to kind of get educated a little bit about Mr. Marley and the Rastafarian culture. Because when you tell the kids this stuff, they're a little surprised. You know, when they're saying religious preference, Rasti on their information, they really don't have a clue about it. So I wanted to just spend a few minutes talking about that. Is every little thing okay? Okay. Basically, it is a spin-off from Christianity. Okay, it's basically believed that Ethiopia is kind of the homeland, the heaven here, and I'm going to mispronounce his name again, but Haile Selassie is the second Christ, and that some think he's still living, he's ever living somewhere, lost in Ethiopia. Heaven is Ethiopia, Zion, and versus Babylon, Babylon being the world. If you see some of the main characters down there, you got Haley and you've got the Marcus Garvey, was supposed to be the second John the Baptist. So all this kind of gave birth to the Rastafarian thing here. There's different sects of it down there, pretty developed. And the colors, this is what they stand for. Kids have no idea. Red is the blood of past Rastas that have died in their faith. Yellow, the wealth of the homeland. Green, the herb of the land. And that's one of, you know, he talks about the herbs and the healing of the nations. He really did believe that marijuana was going to connect people to the second Christ. And that's, you know, he used his music to kind of proselytize that out there. Black were the roots of the faith. So when you see the colors, they have no idea, right? Obviously, music became a big part of it. Reggae is not necessarily tied directly to Rastafarian, but it does have a strong correlation because of those that brought in Rastafarian lyrics into the music. The music itself isn't bad, but Marley was a devout Rasta, so devoted that he would not take the treatment for cancer because of religious reasons. He died for his faith. Now, how many of our kiddos would make that same choice just for a little marijuana, right? Rasta doctrine is in the lyrics. Some of their values, I know Bob Marley probably wasn't 100% good at following all this stuff, but he did reject materialism. He gave away a lot of his monies. Sensuality, oppression, politics, said very little. And I've got a little video clip where he tries to kind of push off the impact of the music and his views about the marijuana on the non-Rastafarians. They go for vegetarian diets. They don't want to use alcohol or tobacco, very conservative. The dreadlocks, they actually have spiritual scriptures to support the use of the dreadlocks as being a growth and patience type of thing. They believe the bodies are temples. They do a lot of outdoor worship and that kind of stuff. So The spiritual use of cannabis is included. And like I said, I know Bob Marley was, he used a lot, but believed that that was his direct connection to his higher power, and that it was smoke to give contact with Jah, to get that physical connection with God. There's holy days with the smoking, the dancing, the worship, all tied into this. And if we look at being drunk on alcohol as being they use it in communion, might be a similar view as some sort of rationalization for it. It's considered a sacrament, and it has there's Bible verses that that they have listed, so that kind of justify that for that thing. So I'm going to let you guys hear it from Marley. There's a little bit of some music in there. This is an old interview, so I apologize for the bad video. It's more important to probably hear it than anything, but I'll let you
I
guys.
have to say that
Yeah.
the audio is not coming through on our webcast
Okay.
version, just
Okay.
the video.
All right.
So is it
That's
something that you want to still play for the?
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
still play it. Yeah.
We can post those videos
Yeah.
afterwards.
for you guys online. We're going to post those videos so you can see them later too. So obviously we can see he had some different views that, you know, maybe would our kids, if they were as famous as he is, would they give away all their money? And just something to think about and to challenge them to think about when they kind of affiliate with the colors or the, say, the Rastafarian. They may not totally understand what that means. So, so there's some things to think about. Okay, let's look at the media. All right, media has, like you said, some very confusing messages. You guys have heard 420, right? And we've had about 20 different explanations of what that means. Where it originated from was a group of kids in California that used to get together at a certain area on the campus at 420, and they called themselves the Waldos, and that just kind of went viral from there. It kind of extended as a secret code to talk about smoking pot in general, and it's so viral that it's they've actually had to change highway signs, and I verified this when I was in Colorado. This is legit. They actually have a 419.99 mile marker because the 421 kept getting stole. So, yeah. If you think about the history of movies, this is not all of them. I know Cheech and Chong are missing that kind of stuff too, but the history of movies, even the way we've portrayed marijuana and cannabis from the beginning has changed significantly. If you think even some of the newer releases, like the Homegrown and some of the other ones that seems like it's gone from the reefer madness to, you know, the goofy guy who can't make a full sentence to, you know, the guy next door. So even the views have changed throughout in the media. Let's test your knowledge. Now, I got these names from the kids. I said, well, who are you guys' favorite musicians and how many of them smoke pot? So they're telling me these things. We'll see how much you guys know. Some of them are pretty obvious, but who's that guy? That'd be the Biebs, right? Justin Bieber, who is rumored to have so much marijuana in his planes that his helpers have to wear gas masks. So, yes. Anybody? Wiz Khalifa, who is now right up with the car movie, the Fast and Furious number, whatever it is, with the big song at the end of his. That has made kind of his front line. Now everybody's connecting, you know, that lifestyle too. That'd be Snoop. You guys are good. Yeah, that was easy, right? Good job, guys, right? A Lil Wayne. This one's a little tougher. You guys remember this? Because I Got High? You guys remember that? That is Afro Man, yep. Who's that lovely lady? Rihanna, yeah. There's another easy one for you guys, 50 Cent, right? This one is an older band, but they brought this up. You guys know who that was? Bone Thugs. Yeah, I didn't realize they were involved in that culture, but they were. Everybody's favorite, Miss Miley, Hannah Montana, can you believe it, right? But you think about the kids that were watching Hannah Montana that followed her right into this current lifestyle. Our kids are looking for people to look up to. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. And there's not a, you know, in the media now, there's not a lot of strong anti-use people in the media. So that one's that was a little different one for me too. Nova Kane is his name. Yeah. Any idea on that one? Little Boozy. Yeah, Little Boozy, right? Anybody know? I believe it's Drake. And that one there? Nicki Minaj, right? Good job. I'm impressed. New Tyga, right? He's coming more into the scene now. It seems like the Tyga's been a favorite, but and then lastly, Seth Rogen, right? I know there's more of them out there. Somebody said, well, why didn't you put Willie Nelson? Well, kids don't know who that is. Right? But this is the media. If you're working with kids, sometimes they can teach you a lot. If you just let them tell you what they're listening to, pull it up and look at the lyrics, and you got a lot of grounds of something to talk about right in there. Why is it that they dig this stuff? They're rich, they're powerful, they have money, they can do whatever they want, get away with anything. Hedonistic stuff. So, but it's a good place to start the discussion. Marijuana, of course, with the media and the movies and the legalization, there's a lot more options to use, okay? So they can get extremely creative. Vaporizers, so we talked about the e-cigs, well, we'll talk a little bit more about e-cigs too, but the e-cigs, a lot of the kids are telling me they went around school with their e-cigs smoking pot all day in their vaporizer. So they're using it more than just for, fruity flavored waters, right? E-cigs are something to be concerned about. Dabbing, and that's the resins, okay? And we got a little video on that here coming up, but hash oil, honey oil, butter, it's highly concentrated because the pot is so available. It takes a lot of pot to make it, but it's incredibly concentrated. The THC levels are off the charts. There's a lot more trouble with that because of ER visits and some other things we're going to talk about. A lot of psychotic type of things that we're seeing with the cannabinoids. Even the synthetics or just the high concentrations of the THCs, we're seeing more psychotic disorders. We're starting to believe that maybe it's pushing them over the threshold into a schizophrenia that doesn't necessarily respond to traditional treatments. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But edibles, cookies, candies, all kinds of stuff. I know they've had some labeling wars down in Colorado. Now they have to label what's in the amount that's in each brownie because there was no regulation between a high potency brownie and a low potency brownie for a while. But it is available everywhere. Wax, this is going to be the other side of YouTube. YouTube can be great for some things, but the same kids that are watching those other videos are going to have this next video to show you a little bit how to make some butane honey oil, okay?
Hey guys, Lydia here.
Like you can see pretty, you see the large amount of pot and that small amount of wax, okay? There's a lot of THC in there. And on the bottom right-hand corner of that picture, that is a BHO cookie inside. So obviously you're gonna have explosions. You're dealing with hot flame and butane, and that's not a good combination for that. So, and this is just one of many videos that are available on YouTube for your children's education, right? Obviously very quick, strong high, highly concentrated. Some of that stuff can be as high as 80% THC. That's going to create all sorts of problems. So we're not dealing with the natural pot. They do call it butane honey oil or butane hash oil, BHO. Call it blasting, is what he just did. And then they use that either in a vaporizer or in a bong, or they can let it get hard and, you know, get creative with it, put it in stuff. Very hallucinogenic. That's, like I said, where there's a tie-in with some of the psychotic disorders with this. Anybody heard of cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome? It's new on the forefront. It's been studied, studies back in the 90s of about 90 cases. We're seeing it in the last year. We've seen 3 cases. It is something that you're gonna see as the kids are using, even adults using higher levels of THC. It's been misdiagnosed as cyclic vomiting or some sort of psychosomatic thing. It's all in their head. But they literally cannot stop vomiting. The young man we had come through our facility could not attend groups. He walked around with a barf bag and continued to vomit. We had to medically get him stable before. Another case we had to be admitted to a nursing home because he couldn't keep any nutrition in him. It took him about 4 months to get through that. So we're dealing with some pretty serious things, and it's you could die from that. You know, the famous thing is you can't die from pot. Now, this is something that is a direct result of pot that could hurt you. Right now they're saying the only relief it provides for them is hot showers. So you get this compulsive showering thing where they're standing for hours and hours and hours in a hot shower because it's the only thing that prevents them from actually vomiting. And it is a dose-dependent thing. So the more they use, the stronger the response is going to be. And we've seen on the short end about 3 weeks this lasted up to that 4-month case that we saw. After the THC has to get out of the body, and we know if they're consuming high levels, it's going to take a long time for that to come out of the system, and the vomiting won't stop until it's out. So it could be a long time. We had to do IV fluids on the one kid that we did have to ensure, and just in a secured area to ensure they're not using cannabis, because what have they learned if you have an upset tummy and you're feeling nauseous and you're not hungry, what do you do to make it better? You know, there is that whole, smoke a little pot, right? So there is that vicious cycle as they continue, because the doctors are saying, oh no, this is some cyclic vomiting thing, or this is some psychosomatic complaint thing. So they're still trying to correct it by smoking more pot, prolonging it thing. There is not a lot of literature on this, and the literature that is out there is old, but this is something we are going to see. I thought I had run across it kind of on accident down in Colorado. The doc that spoke did talk about seeing more of it there too. And a lot of times the kids that we had were getting gummies and candy with the THC in it from Colorado. So just the higher levels of the THC. And it goes across all the cannabinoids. So it could be some of the synthetics. It could be some of the ones, cannabidiol, some of the other things too. So just something to keep aware of if vomiting is an issue. Kind of want to maybe take a UA. Synthetics are, like I said, they're still out there. The chemists are still a step ahead. I think they don't call it K2 anymore. I think it's K3. I think they even have a K4, where they're constantly trying to change the components to make them legal. There was a NIDA warning come out in 2015 about it. Because of a surge in ER overdoses. It hit locally here in the news in 2015 in Sioux City. We had several kids die from a bad strain of the K2 that was running around. And those components keep changing, so it's hard to stay away from them. But there are some of them and some of the names that would go with them. A lot of the kids are afraid of the K2 anymore, and you'll hear them say that they tried it once or twice or it was laced in something. So the perception of risk is still is increasing, but it doesn't mean they're not using it. This little guy here is Poison Control Center calls. If you look in the top line with that spike there, that's 2015. So we're still not out of the woods when it comes to exposures, and maybe people are feeling more confident to call poison control centers. But if you look at 2014, there was only just 3,600. 2015, we doubled. So it's still out there, and it's still causing trouble. And the trouble doesn't have to be with daily use. It could be 1 or 2 times use or occasional use that can cause some of these issues. This 18-year-old in Sioux City, Austin McLeod, did pass away from a bad run of some K2 that recently hit the Midwest. 3 of his friends were hospitalized and once again blamed on chemists that are messing with ingredients to keep them legal. All right, whoops. Going too fast. A new phenomena. Remember, we used to think cigarettes were the gateway drug, right? Tobacco. It's changing, okay? This is just kind of a little map that says the first drug that anybody used was marijuana. 65% of them was marijuana. When it comes to illicit drugs, alcohol probably is right on the top of that list too. But if you look at it, that is what they're choosing, with pain relievers being a second. You know, and a lot of that could be stemming from a prescription that kind of developed into a dependency there. We also know DSM-5 has changed to reflect some of the things we're learning about cannabis, and I'm thankful for that. We do recognize tolerance, withdrawal, and craving now, which was not in the criteria before. And those things are, it's not like a meth withdrawal, it's not like an opiate withdrawal, it's milder, but it's still there. If you've ever been around kids or adults coming off of marijuana in an inpatient or residential facility, they're not always very happy, they're kind of cranky. They may not feel very well too. Mood issues are going to surface. I know we kind of need an integrated approach in some ways, because some ways we want to look at which came first and kind of get into the debate. Did depression or anxiety come first, or did the substance use come first? It really doesn't matter. The fact is that the symptoms are there and need to be treated, but can treatment be effective while they're actively using a substance that kind of messes with those same chemicals in the brain? Not likely. Sobriety is still going to be prescribed when it comes to treatment, especially with anxiety and depression. It does recognize some of the things that we've known. It's got the deliriums, psychotic disorders, anxiety, depression, all those things that tie into it. And also a sleep disorder as well. All right, e-cigs. Next best thing to smoking, right? This is an alarming thing. Out of all the tobacco products in all grades, it was the highest 30-day use of e-cigs. And then the lowest perceived risk of regular use of all the substances across the board. Teens aren't using tobacco, they're using e-cigs. If you take a look at this little map here, this is 2015, the one in the video is 2014, and it's already greater. On the right-hand side is what is in the e-cigs. If you look at, 65 are saying it's flavoring, but once again, there's no FDA, we don't know what's in the flavoring, right? Nicotine is about 23%, and then your marijuana, or I don't know, about 6% of what they're using it for. Now, if you think about if they really do believe that all they're using is flavoring, the perception of risk is going to be a whole lot less. But once again, there's no regulations on what's in the vape fluid, okay? All right, let's pull up. Remember the guy from before? He's got a little ditty here on e-cigs that we'll pull up here real quick too. Mm-hmm. of debate and very little research yet, and no FDA approval. So it's some concerns. I'm not clicking here. There we go. Yeah. A lot of different brands, a lot of makers. You kind of saw how they worked. Vaping is inhaling an e-cigs. If you hear them talk about vaping, that's what it means. Analog is what they call traditional cigarette. Yeah, yeah. Tank is the larger the better. They can put more stuff in there. And a modified and personal vaporized, another PV e-cig title. There is a whole movement out there, just like the marijuana movement, this grassroots movement that says it's healthy, it's better for you, you know, but there just isn't any studies on some of the stuff that's in there. Some of the other manufacturers on some of the chemicals found in there say don't inhale that. Flavorings, preservatives that might be geared towards kind of a younger generation, mint chocolate and bubble gum. It's just seen as a lesser of two evils, and manufacturers are not creating them uniformly. So like you said, there have been some warnings for violation of what they call the unsubstantiated claims in poor manufacturing processes, what FDA has done on them. So still some concerns out there with that. They are studying them, like they talked about in the video, carbanols and some of the flavoring, as well as some of the results of the burning and how they impact the lungs are starting to be studied. Some side effects, obviously the respiratory illnesses stuff, more immune issues. And then what happens if kids pick them up? What about accidental exposures? It could be concerning, especially with overdose to nicotine for young people. There is everything against what I just said and trying to disprove every argument against it. So the same kind of emotional energy that's behind the pot debate is still here with the e-cigarettes. It's highly emotional. Flocka, I know I have not seen it yet come through. I know they're talking about it more, but it's a crystalline rock that's meant to be similar to a methamphetamine. It's bath salts, so it is a synthetic. And if you didn't know, cat is the source of all those cathinols. And it's a psychotic, so it's going to mess with dopamine and the noradrenaline and have similar properties to some of the bath salt stuff, but it's just another one that kind of recently is hitting the discussion. The other one, real quick here, caffeine powders. Okay, high doses of caffeine, as well as energy drinks. Bad combo. They're mixing alcohol with the energy drinks. And we talk about ADHD type behaviors. So we have to look at their consumption of caffeine. We need to look at, you know, are these as a result of the substance or are they pre-existing? But they do have very similar symptoms. There's kind of some basic caffeine. There are ones that are higher in that too, but you know, if you look at the 5-hour energy, there's those little bottles that you see in Walmart, right? It's a 2-ounce bottle with a lot of caffeine in there, so they're going to have heart issues, paranoia, that kind of thing. And Dirty Sprite, have you guys heard of that one? We're starting to see that one, yeah, where they're mixing energy drinks with alcohol and other medicines. Cough syrup tends to be the big one, and this was popularized again by the music, right? This is Lil Wayne, DJ Esco, Scream, and X-Rated Future. It's got a video too, which we won't watch because it's probably not appropriate for all audiences, but it is out there if you want to look at it. It's a video strictly encouraging Dirty Sprite use. Obviously, some very concerning things. Same things we saw with the DXM use. Cardiac issues and seizures, biggest concern. So any questions or comments? I know I'm getting close on time here. Questions, concerns, comments? I will happily share anything. If you give me an email, I can send you all the slides. We'll get the videos uplinked for you guys so that you can see them. I know you guys don't have to be on the camera if you don't want to, if you want any questions. So, all right, guys. So hopefully it gives you kind of a window to discuss with the kids in your care. If you have any other questions, feel free to email or give us a call. Thanks again for the opportunity, you guys.
Am I up on this?
Still live if you want.
Okay, great. To those who are on the internet and to those who are here live, we do have certificates for CEUs. The person who was supposed to sign them, we didn't get them signed yet. So what we'll do is if you're signed up on the list here, we'll get those to you via email or physical mail. I'm not sure how exactly yet. And if you're online streaming with us, send an email to me and I'll send a certificate to you. My email is matt, matt.walz, W-A-L-Z, at keystonetreatment.com. Again, that's Matt, matt.walz, W-A-L-Z, at keystonetreatment.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. Thanks, Christy.
All right.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thanks, guys.